How's everyone doing this morning? Where's the energy? We're Democrats. We're flipping the state. What's going on? How's everyone doing this morning? My name is Nick Miller. I'm a candidate for House District 35. I'm an urban planner, community organizer, and I'm running to represent Kennesaw and Ackworth in the State House. I'm looking to be, the first Black elected official in the State House to represent Kennesaw and Ackworth. I feel like that's a representation that is long overdue for this district, and it's definitely time that we had representation at the state level, that prioritize values of creating more equitable, accessible, and livable Georgia, and I'm here to do that. So just kind of give you a little bit of information about myself. I'm from Kennesaw. I was a tri-sport athlete at North Cobb High School. Upon graduating from North Cobb, I had a full scholarship to play football at Furman University. Went to Furman, didn't win too many games, but I came back to Kennesaw with a degree in hand in poli-sci and an opportunity really to give back to my community in Kennesaw and Ackworth. So when returning home, I entered the Andrew Young School of Policy Studies, where I got my Master of Public Policy with a concentration in economic development. And then I worked as an urban and community planner at the Atlanta Regional Commission, which, if you all don't know what that is, that's the planning agency for the 10-county Metro Atlanta region. And of course, that includes Cobb County, Kennesaw and Ackworth. So I got to do a lot of work on local levels across the region through that work. The years after doing planning work, I made a shift towards politics and through stints with U.S. Senator Mark Warner, the Georgia Democratic Party, congressional candidate Dana Barrett, who I was a deputy campaign manager with. I learned to, talk with voters and really learn how leaders, partner with policymakers to drive systemic change. And then finally, in 2020, I worked the John Ossoff campaign, and that kind of energized me and solidified my beliefs in, the power of mobilizing voters and fighting for true representation that reflects our values. While these events inspire me, I've always, idolized leaders who like to work with the community, right? Not work, for their, I feel like, I'm up here campaigning, I'm telling you about, why I'm capable and why I'm the best candidate, right? I've always idolized the leaders that, continue to listen and work with the leaders and serve in their community. That was something that was, taught to me and kind of something that was ingrained in me from an early age. With my granddad, being the first Black mayor of this small town in Branchville, South Carolina, that was something that definitely inspired me and definitely something I always, kept, at the front of my mind, as I went through, education or whatever, maybe even, some professional settings. And this I know wasn't really what I was planning to discuss, but I think it's, really timely with, us confirming, the first Black woman to Supreme Court, just the importance of representation. I know coming up, like I always thought I wanted to be a football player. I just knew that I was the next Deion Sanders, drive up the 90s, whatever that may be. But that was just because, I knew that, when I turned on the TV, there were a ton of folks who looked like me who were, making plays, making interceptions, and that's what seemed attainable to me, right? So I feel like a lot more people that look like me, that we can put in the leadership positions, the more that we encourage future generations to believe that they can. And I think that's something that can go across racial, gender lines, sexuality, whatever that may be. I just believe in, our elected officials looking like society looks. So kind of back to, I guess one of the questions that I always get, as I have begun to launch my campaign, finally as a candidate after working on a few campaigns is, why me or why now? And it kind of, for me starts at, some of the moments when I was a child, right? I don't know how many Kennesaw and Ackworth folks are here in the room. I know there's, some definitely watching online. But, just driving down Main Street, right? And you all know what I'm talking about. Looking and then seeing those symbols of hate kind of in the center of my community. That was something that confused me at the time. Even though I knew it was a symbol of hate, I didn't really understand to the magnitude of what those symbols meant, right? But now I kind of understand it to be something different, especially as I've been able to see the change within our community, right? I know that those are relics. That's not what I believe Kennesaw and Ackworth to be today. That is a minority of GA 35. That's a minority of House District 35, because I know that the people that I know, the people in my community, really want bold, progressive leadership at the State House. And this was the same energy that, I definitely saw it, whether in 2020, 2018, just kind of paying attention, and then even in being involved with campaigns. When I was on the front lines, making sure that we elected the leadership that we deserve. I talked to thousands of voters about the things that they prioritize and the things that were important to them. And they kind of confirmed that what I've already knew, right? That we want nothing more than accepting home in a livable place for us to raise our families. And then despite, the reputation that we may get from folks from communities that don't know us, we do want, bold, and this is something I'm sure that, relates across the county. We do want, bold progressive values in Georgia and our country to be a better place for us to raise our families. And that's truly what the folks of Kennesaw and Ackworth want, despite, the propaganda, whatever it may seem, and, that makes us, they kind of push the idea that Cobb isn't winnable, that Kennesaw and Ackworth isn't winnable, and the folks in this room know that not to be true. Kind of eloquently said, I think last time we were here, Representative Allen kind of said, we talk a lot about this blue wave, but this isn't something that we don't see where it's coming from. It doesn't just hit our shores, right? This is the sound of organizers, this is the sound of people in this room. This is a wave of, us stumping in the waters and encouraging that blue change, and, really demanding a more equitable, accessible, and livable Georgia. And those are kind of the values that I'm using to kind of guide my campaign, and hopefully next year when, I'm just wrapping up my first legislative session, the things that are going to guide me, equity, access, and livable future. So, for me, equity definitely begins in making sure that every vote is counted and that everyone has equal access to the ballot box. I feel like definitely as an organizer, I've been guilty of, knocking on the doors and telling folks that change begins at the ballot box. We always make that promise to voters. We're falling through on that promise if people don't have equal and equitable access to the ballot boxes. If they can't get there, if we're making it difficult for them to have their vote counted, then we're not living through on that promise. So I'm definitely in support of ensuring that all Georgians have access to early access to the ballot box, access to absentee voting, and anything that limits long voter lines, which Georgia, especially Cobb County, is notorious for. I'm definitely in support of. Also, voters registration should be easy. I will support anything that prevent Georgia voters from being purged from the voter polls as they have been in the years past. And then I will champion making voter registration permanent for Georgia residents. And then next, equity definitely means standing with all Georgians, and that means regardless of their race, origin, gender, or sexual identity. There's no such thing as equal rights for some as we know it, only equal rights for all. So I'll stand up against discriminatory legislation of every form and support policies aimed at ensuring equal protection under law. And I believe in a government that looks like the communities we live in. If y'all haven't gotten that point right by now, it's something I prioritize. And when it's time to amplify the voices of those who have been silenced, I will use my platform to bring as many voices as possible to the table. Also equity to me means, reforming our criminal justice system and that just is giving everyone a fair shot. So efforts that address police brutality, overcriminalization, mass incarceration, recidivism. We must address all race and class disparities in policing, prosecution, sentencing. Of course, I'll support reallocation from funding the prison system to programs that work, and that can be rehabilitative or educational partnerships and opportunities, and the things that we're currently doing here in Georgia, such as accountability courts. Which has been shown to have a positive impact. So, really expanding that and making sure that we have, that our justice system is supported. And also, it's time that we trust women to make their own healthcare decisions. It shouldn't be that complicated for our legislators to keep their hands and their policy away from women's bodies. Of course, we're talking about House District 35, which a lot of folks at Kennesaw and Ackworth have been previously represented by Ed Setzler. This is when y'all boo, y'all can go ahead. Who definitely is, most infamous, of course, for introducing the heartbeat bill banning abortions after 6 weeks. Our district deserves better, Kennesaw and Ackworth deserves better, and now we have an opportunity to elect better. The women have had the constitutional right for safe and legal abortion for nearly 50 years. It's super important that we send someone to the State House ready to stand up against it, because it's going to come up every legislative session. They're going to try to make decisions for women. We should also guarantee women these rights through quality reproductive health services that are critical to women's health and economic security, and we must knock down systemic barriers that have made it especially difficult for low-income women and women of color to get the reproductive care that they need. Next, as I mentioned before, I'm committed to increasing access to Georgians, and that begins with accessible and affordable health care. We should not have to depend on our employer to get high-quality, affordable, and accessible health care. And so we need to expand access for all Georgians, and that begins with Medicaid expansion that better support women, children, retirees, and those who are disabled.
Yeah.
And then something that I've become, super passionate about is mental health resources and mental health access. I do think the bill that came out of this session is definitely a step in the right direction. But it's critically important that we not only, divert people from the prison system and, send them through the system to get the mental health resources that they need, but we also must invest in that. So that means, upgrading the mental health facilities that we have here, not too far from actually where we are right now. And also that we prepare the people, from top to bottom who are, tasked with giving these people the support they need with the education and trainings that they need to adequately support folks who are going through our public system for mental health support. And then next, we should give children what they need to succeed, and that means, giving access to a quality education in the state. I'm as a proud product of the Cobb County Public School System, North Cobb. Go Big Orange. And then the son of an SSA administrator with the Cobb County Schools, I definitely understand the importance of paying Georgia teachers fairly and making sure that students have access to all the resources they need to succeed. You can count on me to support teachers when it's time to set them up for success, because I believe that that's critical to the success of our society. I will also support the investment in training, retention, and recruitment of paraprofessionals and special educators so that schools are more adequately prepared to serve all students. And I will advocate for increased counseling resources as well as legislation aimed at increasing access to both four-year universities and technical colleges. And then I also want to support students say they decide not to, pursue, a professional or graduate education. They should still be able to get a good paying job. Also, we all should have access to safe, stable, and affordable housing. As a planner, this is something that's, definitely important to me in my daily work. But as the Atlanta region grows, renters and homeowners should still be able to afford to live here. For our communities to thrive, we must create and preserve affordable housing options for our residents. I know this is something, especially super important to the folks of Kennesaw and Acworth, right? As we see, Kennesaw State University, our community grows, right? So it's definitely, super important that we, make sure that it maintains some place where families could live and thrive and raise their families too, and supporting, legacy residents and give them the ability to rent our own as the city grows or changes. And then finally, kind of the last bucket of my platform, of course, livable future, protecting our environment for future generations to come. So I truly believe that climate change is one of the most critical issues that our generation will face. And I support policies that protect Georgia's environment, preserve our natural resources, and reduce pollution in Kennesaw and Acworth, as well as the state of Georgia. I'll work to increase accountability. I think the folks definitely in this area definitely understand the importance of large businesses being accountable to our environment, and then leveraging clean energy jobs as an opportunity to boost our economy. I truly believe that we have an opportunity as the state of Georgia to become a national model for environmental policy, and we need leaders like myself who honestly are committed and then very passionate about a livable future for the state of Georgia. And finally, I think that we should build an economy that works for everyone. Unfortunately, our current system leaves hard workers behind. There's no reason you should be able to work a 40-hour work week and not be able to support yourself and your family. So many of us have to deal with the effects of rising healthcare costs, stagnant wages, and wealth inequality. And I will fight to increase the minimum wage so that it's not below the federal minimum. And equal pay and access to affordable child care so that no full-time working Georgian will live in poverty. I understand the need for an educated, highly skilled workers and a trained labor force. And I will ensure that Georgia's businesses have access to the workforce that they need, and Georgia residents have access to the employment that they want. So, as far as, that's most of my platform, but I definitely want to, answer the question why I feel like I'm the best candidate to represent Kennesaw Africa. I'm ready to go to the State House. I feel like I'm the bold, energetic, dependable leadership that we need here in House District 25. I'm ready to fight for the change that we need on day one, and I'm happy to answer any other questions you have. I'll try to leave some time. I know I'll talk for a little bit, but thank you to the South Democrats for having me here today, and definitely be hanging around if you have any other questions for me about my platform or myself.